And I'm going to run through this really quickly. Since you already have the solutions manual, I'm just going to tell you why the first step for you. You can take a look at the solutions manual. What we're looking at here is f is equal to 11. So what do is we need to substitute 11 in there. So we end up with f of 11 is equal to negative 56 plus 1 times 11. And then now all you do is you go through and you simplify that, and then you end up with f of 11 is equal to negative 45. So now we are to be using the graph here when h is equal to negative 4. And what is negative 4? Well, that is x. So then we are looking for what is the y. The x, negative 4 is the x. And then h of x is equal to our y. So we are just wanting to take a look here at negative 4 for our x. So we come over here, here's negative 4 for our x. So then this is our y right here. So h of negative 4 is equal to 1. So that's that. Now this is going to be our y, and we want to find out what our x is. So we go to negative 4 here on our y, which is right here. We only have one spot there. That is our x. So h of negative 8 is equal to negative 4. But let's say, for instance, that they asked us for 1. Well, in this case, we would have there, we would have here, and we would have here as all possible answers. So then you would have h of 1 is equal to negative 7, comma, negative 4, comma, 3. And then we are to evaluate the expression when h is negative 3. So we need to go to our negative 3 for x, which is 0. So this is negative 2 times by 0 plus 5. And then what is h of negative 7? So we go over here to negative 7. That brings us up to 1. So times by 1. So 0 plus 5 is just going to be 5. Which, if you take a look at the key, you will see that I made a mistake. I said negative 2, but it's negative 2 times 0, which is going to be 0. So pay attention there. That should have been 0. Hopefully you watch the video and you realize why I made my mistake, because I was going quickly, trying to get the key out for you guys, and was not doing my math correctly. So don't do the same mistake that I did on the test. Make sure you double check your work. So what input values give h of 0? So input values is what x? We are looking for x. So we go to 0, and there are only one value of h of x. So h of negative 3 gives me 0. That's this spot right here. So now what is the range of x? Or what is the range of this function? And the range is my y values. And if we had a graph like so, then my range would go from here to here. But and then that would be everything in between. And so then that would have been negative 2 to positive 6. So then my range, if that were it, would be negative 2 less than or equal to y less than or greater than or equal to negative 2 and less than or equal to 6. But since we don't have that, we are only going to be able to be piecewise. And so then we have to talk about our spots, negative 5, negative 2, 0, 5, and 6. So it's The range is -5, -2, 0, 5, and 6. And I've got two 6's here. It doesn't matter because they're both y values of 6. Domain is x values. And so then we're just going to work our way across and hit all of our x's. So domain is -7, -6, -3, 0, 1, and 3. So that's our domain. But if we had something like a line, if we went from here to here, our domain would have been -7 greater than or equal to x, 6, something like that. But we don't have that line, we only have dots, so we have to pick just those spots. And then we're looking here which graphs are functions. It's a function if it passes the vertical line test, and if it passes the vertical line test, then that means there's only one dot on each vertical line where there happens to be a dot. And so then this is a function, so we will say yes, it is a function. Here I go through here, there's a dot here and a dot here where that vertical line passes. And so then it only has to fail once, so this is no, not a function. And then here, we go through here, 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 and then all of a sudden we've got two dots there, so not a function. And then we do the same thing here, 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 and here, and they only ever pass through once, so yes, it is a function. So I'll circle that one, and I'll circle this one. Is the data set a function, and how do you go about doing this? For every x, there is only one y value, so this corresponds there, this corresponds here, this corresponds here, this corresponds there, 2, right? And so then I'm looking here, and I have no repeating x values. I don't have like a 10 and a 10 with different y values. If my 10 came to the 3 and this 10 came to 11, I have repeating x values that give me different y values, so then that would not be a function. But since I have no repeating x's, then this is a function. Yes, function, no repeating x's. And then we go through here. So what I'm going to do is I never want negatives. When I'm dividing, I never want a negative. When I'm multiplying, that's okay if I have a negative exponent, but when I'm dividing, I never want. So what do? I grab this negative, I'm going to bring it up. A to the -1 times by a to the 13. And then this is going to be a to the 13 minus 1, which is going to be a to the 12. And then here, anything raised to the 0 power is 1, so it's 1 over x to the -10. I don't want a negative exponent, so I'm going to bring it up. So x to the 10. And then here, I have no negatives, so I can deal with that. I can say y to the 7th times by y to the -9. Here, that's okay. In this case, I just brought this up so that it becomes negative, and then this is going to be y 7 minus 9 is equal to y to the -2. Or I can say y over 7 y to the 9. I can cancel 7 up top. So if I get rid of 7 up top, then I've got to get rid of 7 here. If I get rid of 7 out of the 9, I'm left with 2. So I'm left with 1 over y squared, which is the same as this, because if I were to bring that down, then I get 1 over y squared. So this works just fine, or this works just fine. Even though I'm telling you to put it in x to the n where I want the -2, I will take if you get it like that, because you might be able to argue that it's in this form. But anyway, I'm just checking to see if you know how that works. So that's the reason why I'm allowing you to do that in either form. And then we'll take a look at this one. So when they're multiplying, what do? We just add them together. So this is y to the 6 minus 2. This becomes y to the 4th. And then this one, a to the 3 minus 3 is equal to a to the 0. Don't stop at a to the 0 because anything raised to the 0 power is 1. And then how do you go about doing this? Well, what are we doing when we shift? When we have a negative, that means we shift right 2. So we're shifting right to 1, 2. And then we go what? Up 4. So we go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're here. We go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're here. I'm going to put a spot here. So I go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then now I'm here. I'm going to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to draw my lines. I'm going to draw in my arc. One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I did a mistake here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So pay attention. Don't do what I did. Make sure that you are counting correctly. And so then this is going to be the translation. And then I'm going to change colors because I can. And then I'm going to do my reflection. So my reflection is just across the x-axis. And I'm reflecting this blue. So 1, 2, 3. So I go 1, 2, 3. This didn't move because it's on the x. This didn't move because it's on the x. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then this goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So get rid of this x-axis that I drew in there. It's going to get in the way. So then I'm here, and I'm here, and then I draw in my arc. Let's start here. It'll be easier for me to draw that arc in, and we'll draw in this arc here. So this is my reflection, and that's my translation. The greatest common factor, so what do? I take 44, and I'm going to split that up into 4 and 11, and then I can split this up into 2 and 2, and 16 is going to be 4 and 4, right? And so what I'm looking for is numbers that I can get to match, and so I can't get 11 to go into 16, but I can get 4. So I'm going to have 4 go into it. That's the biggest number that I can find to go into both of those. So then I'm going to do the same thing. First, I try to see, can 18 go into 16? Can 18, 36, and it can. Can 18 go into 45? And 18 cannot. So I'm going to take 18, split that up, 36, split that up, 45, split that up. And so what I'm going to do here is I can split this up into 15 and 3, and I can split this up into 18 and 2, and I can split this up into 9 and 2. So as you can see here, I've got an 18 and 18, but I don't have an 18 over there. So I'm going to split this up again, 3 and 3, 9 and 2, 3 and 5. And so what I see here is I see that I have a 3 and a 3, and a 3 and a 3, as you see right here, they make a 9. So what I see is a 9, and what this creates is a 9, and what this creates is a 9. So my greatest common factor between these 3 is 9. And then we're now on the last page here. What is the additive inverse? What do I add to this to make it 0? That's my additive inverse. And so then all I do is I change the sign. So this is going to be positive 11/30ths, negative 115, 151 over 5,320, and negative 1. We want all of this to be 0. I add this up, I get 0. I add this up, I get 0. I add this up, I get 0. And then the multiplicative inverse is when you multiply, you want it to become 1. So what you do is all you do is you flip it. You keep the same sign in terms of its positive or negative, but you just flip it. 30 over 1, or 30 over 11, 5,320 over 151. This is positive, so I keep it as positive. And then 1. 1 times what gives me 1? Well, 1 times 1 gives me 1. Or, if you wanted to, you would say 1 over 1. Either one of those works, because when you multiply 1 times 1 over 1, you get 1, or 1 times 1, you get 1. And everybody has done fairly well on this. All I did, as you can see when I went through this, is I just grouped these into common pairs. So I did numbers with numbers, y's with y's, and x's with x's. So you can go through there and you should be fine. So I'm going to skip. Oh, things to pay attention to. Grab this negative and bring the negative through to both. So then this becomes negative 6x plus 27, right? Distribute the 2 through, okay? Make sure you do those things. Make sure that you pay attention to the negative and bring the negative through. Those are the things to pay attention there. And when you substitute, make sure that you are using parentheses, because you don't want p to be like negative 10 and then substitute that incorrectly. Well, how do you stop that from making that mistake? Is you use parentheses when you substitute. So when I substitute, you're going to see that I'm using parentheses. 7 minus 5 times by 10 minus 8 times by 2. So then this is 7 minus 50 minus 16, and then you combine all of those together, and you end up with negative 59. So you do the same thing here, substitute this in, use parentheses, substitute this in, use parentheses. And then as you can see from the answer, you're going to end up with 4 minus 4, which is going to be equal to 0. This one here is just, do you know what happens when you raise something to the 0th power? Well, the answer is just 1. And then what happens when you're raising a power to a power? What do? You go a step down from raising to a power to multiplication. So 5 is 2 times by 25, which is just going to be 5 to the 50. And then what you want pay attention to here is you have a negative, right? If I have negative x to the 6 squared, well, what is this? This is negative x to the 6th times by negative x to the 6th. And what happens when you have a negative times a negative? Well, that's a positive. So pay attention that if your negative is inside the parentheses, turn that negative into a negative 1 and then distribute that through. Because when you distribute that through, negative 1 times by negative 1 is just a positive 1. So in this case, we're going to have x 6 times by 2 is x to the 12, which would have been in this case, because when you're multiplying these together, what do you do with these 6's? You add them together. So this is x 6 plus 6, or x to the 12, which is what we got. All right, so we did that one. Now we got this one. Well, a negative times a negative is a negative, so our answer is going to be negative. And then when you multiply these together, what do you do with your powers? Well, you're just adding them. So this is going to be C6 plus 4. This is just seeing if you get confused with the negative. Well, don't get confused. If you need to, just turn that into a 1, and then you just keep the 1 out front. So negative C, 6 plus 4 is going to be negative C to the 10, and then there you are. Same thing here. Don't get confused with that negative. Just keep the negative. Negative y 2 minus 10, which is going to be negative y to the negative 8, which is going to be equal to 1 over y to the 8. And you can have negative there, or you can have it out front, or you can have it on the bottom. It does not matter where you put it. I like it out front, but you can have it up top if you want to. It works just fine. And then that's that. There you go. Good luck on your test on Monday. Make sure you get your 300 minutes.